Maybe I'm just constantly trapped inside a haunted house. Oh, that's a terrifying thought. Hello my loves, and thank you for joining me. It's Kirsten and it's time to do October's reading wrap up. Starting off, we have one DNF, we've got 2 books I'm in the middle of, and we finished my October TBR. I am so impressed with that. Technically, the Relax and Readathon, we didn't finish the whole TBR, but we completed the bingo board for it. So, you know, we actually did succeed in October, like really well. I'm surprised. I didn't think I was going to get everything done, but I enjoyed it. I did take part very loosely in Leandra's TBR Harvest. I did the house, the haunted house, where you had to go with your Scooby gang and try and escape the house, but I did it very low-key, very relaxed. Honestly, every single time I went to do a vlog update, I was like, I have to talk about it, and then would just forget to mention it, but I did actually take part in that. So I will talk about the books as I go through them as to what books went with what prompts. We all know what a wrap up is. Let me know what you have read during the month of October. What was your favourite read? What was your least favourite? Do let me know. But okay, let's talk about the 2 books I am in the middle of. One, I am deciding whether I am DNFing or not, and that is The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. This is book club pick for Discord, so if you don't know, I do have a Discord. It's free to join, and every single month we do have a book club. I like this, but that's it. Like, it's just a like. I have no real want to finish it. I am currently up to chapter 23, page 273. You're going to be seeing the reading vlog for this come out after this video, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. We'll see in that video as to whether I actually continue reading this one, but there is nothing wrong with this book. It's just, it's very much romance heavy instead of gothic heavy. But this prompt was fulfilling the living room prompt for Escape the Haunted House, which is enter blindly. You can see the door, but what is that crawling from under the couch? And I thought this would be really good for it because I didn't know much about this book going into it. I'm not sure if I'm finishing it. I'm not sure if DNFs count technically, or whether I'm just going to be forever trapped inside the haunted house. I actually don't know, but regardless, I haven't finished it in October anyway because it's now the 1st of November, so maybe I am. Maybe I'm just constantly trapped inside a haunted house. Oh, that's a terrifying thought. Anyway, moving on. The second book I am currently in the middle of is my short story collection for the season, which is Agatha Christie's Autumn Chills. I'm enjoying this. So far, I am this way through. I've still got, I think it's 8. I'm up to Death by Drowning, so I've got 8 stories left to read in this collection, so I do need to get a bit of a wiggle on. I need to start reading 2 a week to finish this out, because I do want to actually finish this out in the season. Like, I don't want to be bringing this into winter, because this is an autumn season book. This is just short stories of Agatha Christie's. Some of them are murder mysteries. I've actually read a couple in here that aren't murder mysteries, and they're actually something slightly different. But it was kind of interesting to see Agatha Christie writing something other than short story. Other than short stories? No. Other than murder mysteries. But so far the murder mysteries I have read have been from Hercule Poirot, which I have enjoyed. It's been really fun, really entertaining. It's a nice, cozy, fun time. But you'll be seeing this again. And then I thought I would talk about some books that I actually read in September, but the video for it came out in October, and that is for the Cosy New Releases videos. So if you don't know, I have started a new series on this channel where I read 2 to 3 new cozy books that have come out in the month, which then gets filmed, reviewed in a vlog style video, comes out in the following month. So in the month of September, I read 3 cozy new releases. One of them is Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. This was a really cute, cozy, witchy story. If you're looking for a really cozy book that gives you witchy vibes, this is the one for it. So we're following our main character who has just turned 30 and she's feeling really lost. She hasn't really been using her magic, and she gets a really rude awakening from the Council of Witches that basically goes, you've barely used your magic, we're gonna take it away from you and we're gonna give you this tiny little bit of time to make us change our minds. And so now she goes on this journey to actually grow into herself more. She has come on leaps and bounds, she's been through a lot, but it's that point to finally embrace all of you. It's very much like a self-help, self-growth book with the cozy fantasy setting. It was really, really lovely to read, so I really would recommend if you're looking for something cute and cozy. I also read The Little Coffee Shop of Terrors by Hazel Graves. This was really, really fun and silly. This is a paranormal sort of mystery. It's hilarious. So we're following the main character, Adele, and Adele has been trying to make it into theatre for absolutely ages. Very musical, she's been trying for so many parts, but she has to kind of come to the realization that, you know what, she has tried so much, she has given so much of herself, and it's just come to nothing. And then she gets a call saying that, by the way, I think is it her aunt? It doesn't say on the back, but I'm pretty sure it's her aunt or great aunt or something like that. A family member that she hasn't met, doesn't know too much of, has recently passed away and left the coffee shop to her, but with one thing that she has to stick to, and that is that the barista stays. And she ends up going there, and this coffee shop is kind of like a coffee shop for granny and granddad hippies. Like, it's so much fun. I love the vibes of this coffee shop. And again, we see Adele trying to kind of just come to grips and choosing her path for herself, realizing that, you know what, just because one door closes doesn't mean that all doors are closed. Like, let's have a look for new fresh opportunities and be true to yourself and add that little bit of spark. There is a little bit of romance in here. It's very obvious from the start where the storyline is going, but it is so funny and ridiculous that it's a really fun time. And I also really like all the references to different musicals in this book. If you need something that is just utterly ridiculous, this is the book for you. It was so much fun, really recommended it. I'll have the video linked below if you're interested, but yeah, this was fantastic. And then for that same video, I also read The Village Library Demon Hunting Society by C.M. Wagner, and I loved this book. This one ended up being my favourite out of the books that I read for that video, and I loved it. This is so much fun. This is kind of like Agatha Christie, but make it paranormal. If you have Miss Marple as the character, it's so much fun. So we are following our librarian, Sherry Pinkwhistle, and she is very good at solving mysteries. There are lots of mysteries, lots of little murders that have been happening in this tiny little village. Honestly, more than what you would expect for such a small little village. You know, she gets involved, she's always solving them, something happens, some coincidence things that just suddenly makes everything slot into place, and so she solves it before the police do. Which is very unusual because Sherry will be the first to say she is not the smartest person, but somehow she makes it work. And then of course we start to realise something more foul is at play, and maybe demons are involved. It is so much fun, it's so silly. It's definitely got an opening for a second book, which I'm keeping my eye out for because I think it's going to be so much fun. This is brilliant. I actually ordered it from my local independent bookshop. I actually ordered both of these from my local independent bookshop, and they ended up getting this in store because they liked the synopsis so much, and I was like, yeah, you should, because this was so much fun. I really recommend this one, especially if you do like a good cozy mystery but you want something maybe more paranormal leaning. Great to read for this time of year. Perfect. A lot of fun. Also actually going into winter because there's lots of like cold and snow and things going on. Yeah, that was really, really fun. Okay, so that's what I read in September, which I just had to mention because the video came out. And now we're going to get into the one DNF that I had in October. And that was for my Relax and Readathon, which was such a shame. Again, I'll have the video linked below for you, but this is Irish Gothic Fairy Stories. I decided to pick this one up just to have a little bit of a short story collection on the go, and I have lots of little fairy tale collections. And I was really intrigued because I was having a bit of a more gothic reading day. Unfortunately, it didn't really work. I found just the way this was written wasn't something that I connected to. It is interesting because it is from 32 counties of Ireland. At the start of each bit, you get a little bit of information about that particular county, and then you get a story from that county. Just the writing style of this, I didn't really enjoy. It just felt, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I didn't enjoy the way this was written. It is a lovely book. You get different illustrations in this, so I really wanted to love it. It really does boil down to the fact that I attempted to read it. I think I got about 30 pages in and the writing style wasn't working. I then started jumping around, just seeing like, well, maybe it's just that short story, which sometimes happens in a short story collection, but because it was the writing style and not the story, that's what made me go, I can't get into this. So yeah, DNF, unfortunately. At the very start of October, I had a T Kingfisher reading week, which I absolutely adored. So the book I was reading was The Twisted Ones by T Kingfisher, which I did really like. This one is kind of true. What people have been saying, that between this and The Hollow Places, you tend to have one that you prefer more than the others. For me, I think I liked the humour in this one a lot more, but I liked the horror aspect in The Hollow Places a lot more than this one. This one, I think the horror, it just wasn't that scary to me. I liked it. I was interested in what was going on. I really liked our characters. We are following Mouse, and Mouse has been asked to clear out her grandmother's house. Her grandmother is a hoarder. She's recently passed away, and her dad can't do it, so she's like, yeah, you know what, I will do this. And then of course things get bad and creepy and weird, but it just didn't quite hit the same for me as Hollow Places. I think if we had the humour from this book, have the horror from Hollow Places, you would have a perfect book. So I think it just depends what you're going into it for, and also what you find more scary. But I did enjoy this one. I thought it was a good time, but that did spark off a reading week inspired by T Kingfisher, where I was reading lots of short stories that have inspired T Kingfisher books. So The Twisted Ones was actually inspired by a little short story from Arthur Machen, which I have in this story collection, which was The White People. And again, it was very interesting because I read this, and then I read the short story that inspired The Hollow Places, which is by Algernon Blackwood, and that's The Willows. I found that this mirrored my experience of the two books quite a lot, where I found that I preferred The Willows to The White People. I found The White People interesting, a little bit weird, a little bit fairy tale-esque, but The Willows to be that little bit more apprehensive, that little bit more spooky, sinister feeling, and that did mirror my experience in reading The Twisted Ones, comparing it to The Hollow Places, which I read a few months ago. That was another Discord book club pick actually. So that was really interesting, and I loved reading these short stories to see the inspiration that T Kingfisher had taken from both of these books. You can see the clear inspirations from these that she has reworked into her books. Like, it was so good and so interesting. I always recommend it. If you have an author that says in the author's note, which T Kingfisher is really good for doing, this is where I got this idea from, always read it, because I find it so fascinating, or at least I do. I love it, and maybe that's just something I love doing, but it really always intrigues me to see the original story that's then inspired it, and to see what's changed, what have they added, what have they taken away, you know, what their focus was. Like, I find it so interesting. So yeah, really enjoyed reading both of these. They're only short stories, so they weren't the whole thing. It was fantastic. And then the last short story I read for the T Kingfisher reading week is actually a 2-page story from this little collection, which is Best Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen, and that is The Princess on the Pea. And The Princess on the Pea helped inspire Nettle and Bone. Just an aspect of it, not the whole book, but it really is, when you're reading it as an adult, it's really weird. Why does this prince want a princess that bruises so easily that she can bruise from a pea that is 20 mattresses deep? Like, why do you want that? And I really like that was called into question. Like, it's weird, it's sinister and eerie, and I honestly had a fantastic reading week reading all these short story books that are a little bit more gothic leaning in tone, and then having a T Kingfisher book to pair that with. It was really good reading week. I really enjoyed that. Then we've got my Relax and Readathon, where I only read 2 things for the Relax and Readathon, and then obviously DNF'd the Irish Gothic fairy tales or stories, Irish Gothic fairy stories. But the main read was The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, and I loved this. This was so good. This was a book I'd been putting off for 2 reasons. One, because I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. I've read The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, which was really weird, and I was a bit like, oh, I don't know if I get on with their writing style. But then more recently I read We Have Always Lived in the Castle, and I liked it, but I wanted it to be a bit more gothic and a bit more atmospheric. Got it in this book. And this also I've been putting off because I wanted to read it in October, and I finally got around to it this year. Really enjoyed it. I had such a good time with this book. I just thought it was very well done, very eerie, very unsettling. I loved the way that this ended. I did tab as well. We only the 3, so we've got quotes that I love, is this mustardy colour. We've got suspense and sinister happenings in this red, dark red. And then the bottom one is descriptions of the house. The house really was made to feel like a character in of itself. So what's happening in this book is we're following a few different characters, but the main perspective we're following is Eleanor. And Eleanor, you know, she's always done what is expected of her, and she gets this invitation by this doctor to go to this house that is meant to be haunted, and the doctor is wanting to kind of run an experiment to see how different people interact with it and the things that happen. Her family's very much like, no, you shouldn't be going. She decides to go anyway, and when she gets there she ends up making really good friends with one of the other ladies that have been invited, but they end up kind of almost devolving into like childish behaviour, which I thought was really fun. Really, it added to the atmosphere in a way because they felt so innocent. And then we do have I think is it a grandson or a nephew whose family owns this house, and the happenings begin. I really enjoyed this. Would really recommend if you're looking for a haunted house story. This has got the perfect atmosphere. I really like the different things that were happening, and with that ending I think you could reread it, get a whole different experience from this story just because of the way it ended. Really enjoyed this. I think it does a really interesting look at what does a house like this do to your psyche and how much of it is in your mind compared to what's actually happening. I love books like that. I love things that question that. So yeah, this was really good. And then also for the readathon I read Promised Neverland Volume 5. I love this manga series. It's probably my favourite manga series. This is all about this orphanage where you've got these children growing up and they seem to be having the best time. It's such a good orphanage until suddenly it's not, and you find out the very dark, sinister truth behind it all. Really like this. Really enjoyed this volume. I'm so intrigued to see where it's going to carry on going. Love it. It is really good. Okay, so that was the Relax and Readathon. Now we get into just a random reading week that I ended up doing. Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes. This one was a gift from Naomi. I should also mention that Autumn Chills was a gift from Jane, so thank you. But this I liked. This is a space horror book, and what I liked about it is that this did not go in the direction I thought it was going to go. You kind of get what's on the back and then it changes direction, and I really liked it. But the premise is that we're following this salvage crew basically. We have the main character who's kind of like the captain of everything. She's in charge of what they're doing, and it's basically her last run, and she doesn't want to go back to Earth because she knows when she goes back to Earth she's just got this dead end office job to go back to, and she really doesn't want it. So they hear this distress call and she's like, you know what, sod it, we're gonna follow it. It means that we will get stuck out in space a little bit longer, but that's what I want. I'm trying to put off going back. Some of the people agree with her, majority don't, but they go off, and what they discover is the find of the century. Basically, they come across this cruise liner that went missing and nobody knew what happened, but it was the most elite space cruise liner of its kind. It was filled with really influential, famous people, and it just all went missing and nobody knew what happened until they find it. And so they decide to go investigate, and things go wrong. I really liked this. I thought it was really good. I think it was a lot more scary at the start, and then when you understood what was going on, it wasn't as scary, but it made sense. And I just thought it was very good, very fun. I liked it. It definitely did get to a point where I was like, oh, this is really creeping me out. It's really good, but it didn't get too far for me. It got to that point where I was like, oh my god, this is so creepy, and then it kind of dipped back down. So it was good. I liked it. I liked what it was doing. I liked the direction and the twists and turns that it took because I wasn't expecting it. This was a good one. Definitely one that I would reread, especially around October time. I thought it was a good book for the season. Then I needed a tone shift, and so I decided to go for my reread, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangoop Mandana. I love this book. This is cozy, witchy vibes. It is freaking tastic. We are following Mika Moon. Mika Moon is a witch, but she feels very isolated. She tries to express herself through YouTube and doing YouTube witchy videos because, you know, nobody believes they're real, until one day she does get a email saying, hey, we need you to come teach 3 young witches, which she does not think could be real because you can't have 3 young witches close together. It's going to cause too much magic. It's going to cause too many problems. But she goes just to see, and yeah, there are 3 young witches in need of a tutor to help them manage their magic. We have a found family. We have a grumpy librarian. It is fantastic. You have a bit of romance in here. We have Mika learning to accept herself, learning to open up a little bit, learning to actually connect to other people after a lifetime of never being able to form bonds and relationships based on what she's always been told in the past. This is just a wonderful book. I genuinely love this. I adore it so much. I connect to it so much. It just means a lot to me. So I really recommend, especially if you're after a good cozy witchy time. Then I had my Frankenstein reading week, which I really enjoyed. So I read the 1818 edition for the first time. Absolutely loved it. So this is what Mary Shelley originally put out to the publishers that was published, and then a few years later Mary Shelley then did a revised edition, which is the more commonly known edition. Although I would say this is getting more hype lately. It's definitely got 2 different print editions of this book, so it's definitely known, but I loved this. I thought it was really easy to read. It actually felt a lot more coherent than the later text. The later text is a little bit more drawn out in places, a little bit long-winded in places. I will say some things you can see the differences in like the tone, the storyline, but it's not too much of a difference that it impacts the reading. Like I preferred reading this to the other edition of Frankenstein that I've read. So I really liked this. I thought it was fantastic. Frankenstein is an amazing book. It's a classic for a reason. This is such a phenomenal book, and it still inspires us today, which came onto the rest of the reading vlog, which was to read a modern day book that's been inspired by Frankenstein, and I picked up A Botanical Daughter by Noah Medlock, and this was brilliant. I also annotated a little bit, but I was only annotating the connections to Frankenstein, but I could annotate so much more from this book. There are so many things that you could take from this. In this one, we are following 2 gentlemen that live together inside this greenhouse, and they live together because they're in a relationship, but this is set in Victorian London during the time where you could not be gay. Something like this would put you in prison, but they're able to style it out as a bachelor lifestyle. We have, is it Gregor is the, yes, Gregor is the botanist and Simon is the taxidermist, and Gregor discovers this fungus that seems to have a lot of intellectual properties, and he's like, hang on a minute, what if we did fungus but with a human body? It is literally Frankenstein but with fungus. It is such a good book. It questions morals, question of hubris that you get in Frankenstein. It questions it here. It has so much packed into this book. I really enjoyed it, and towards the end there are some scenes in this that I was a bit like, wow, I did not see any of this coming. Like the turns that this book took, I did not see coming. There is some slow bits to it, but overall this was a brilliant book, a fantastic retelling and inspiration of Frankenstein. Like brilliant. If you haven't given this a try, you should. Wonderful. And it has a lot of talk about being gay in a society where you have to hide yourself, and how having to hide is so wrong and you shouldn't have to hide. Like I loved this. This is such a good book. Really recommend. Okay, and now we're on to the final 2 books. So we have the book that you all voted on for the month. So if you don't know, in my TBR videos I do always have prompt that I end up having 2 books as options for, and let you vote between which one I read for the month. And for October, The Queen of Poisons by Robert Thorogood won. This is the 3rd book in the Marlowe Murder Club series, and I love it. It's so much fun. I don't think this is the strongest out of the series. I think having had a bit of time away from it, there were definitely things that were left unanswered or kind of rush answered, but overall I really enjoyed this. I did tab it. We have 1 set of tabs for facts of the case, evidence, and then the other tab for suspicions and suspects. Really enjoyed it. Didn't solve it, but I had a fun time doing it. I love following our characters. So we have 3 characters. The main one that we meet in the first book is Judith. Judith is this, I think, is she 80, nearing 80, something like that, lady that creates crosswords, but also likes to go swimming nude in the Thames. She is eccentric and wonderful and is happy to stay that way. Susie, who is this person that is very loud, very brash, always got some sort of scheme on the go, but primarily is a dog walker, and she gets tangled up with Judith in the first book. And we also have Bex, who is the wife of the village priest, and you know, she would say, oh, always apologising for things, you know, she's always got to try and be the perfect wife, but actually, as you get to know her more, there's so much more to her, and she needs to stop putting herself down so much. It's great. I love this trio of women that get together. It's a really, really fun, cozy, entertaining time. It's just that it is a cozy murder mystery, and I love cozy murder mysteries. We know that if you've been here for a while. And then I also read They Drown Our Daughters by Katrina Monroe. This was a really good atmospheric haunted story, but make it a haunted cove, not just a haunted house. And I really enjoyed it. It's a generational story about motherhood and the haunting that goes alongside this story. It's really, really well done. Again, this book took a turn that I wasn't expecting, which I really like, but I also like the talk about dementia and how that impacts people, not just the person suffering with it, but also those family members having to deal with it. We have our main character Meredith, who is the main person we're following. She has split from her wife. She's got her daughter Alice with her, and she goes back home to live with her mum while they try and sort themselves out. But then of course these hauntings start happening again. It's really good, really atmospheric. I really liked the writing of this. It's really not one that gets much hype. I do think it's a bit underrated. Is it going to be a new favourite? No. But do I think it should be a recommendation for this time of year? Yes. So definitely one that I would recommend to others just to give a read. Even if you just get it from your library or something. I have run out of room. It's definitely worth a read, especially if you're wanting something that is gothic leaning. You've got the haunting of it all, but it's not too scary. That works really well for that. So yeah, those are all the books that I read in the month of October. I read loads. I was lucky I had a week off work, so that really helped, and during that week off I was really busy, but I also had lots of time where I was just sat down doing like nothing, waiting for things. So I was able to get quite a lot read, which I am pretty impressed with. I filmed the whole video and forgot to mention which ones were part of TBR Harvest. I am just the worst person. I am so sorry, Leandra. But let's quickly do this. Okay, so we did talk about the living room prompt, but you have to start at the very start of the house. You have to try and rescue your Scooby Gang. And for this one, you had to read a book that worked for another readathon, which I did do the Relax and Readathon. The Haunting of Hill House worked for that prompt, which was the attic. Okay, then we had to come down the chimney. When you crawl into the chimney, it's pitch black, so you need to read a book with a dark cover. I had quite a few, but I did end up going with Dead Silence for this one. And then we reached the fireplace. Someone lit the fire. Do you climb back the way you came or continue down and face the flames? A series read, which I did read Queen of Poisons, which is the 3rd book in a series. So that all worked. And as I said, we did Vampires of El Norte for the living room with Enter Blindly to escape, although as I said, I don't know if I actually succeeded in escaping, seeing as I may have DNF'd that, and also technically didn't finish it in the month of October. So yeah, I'm really sorry, Leandra. I really did enjoy taking part. I just did it very chill, and as a result, because I did it so relaxed, I then just forget to talk about it, which is dreadful. But if you haven't checked out Leandra's channel, do go check her out. She is an amazing person. Lots of mystery recommendations, so if you like mystery books, go check her out. Now we'll just continue the outro bit. I just every single time, every time. But I've been talking for 35 minutes at this point, so I'm going to stop talking and get going. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please do let me know if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts were on them. Again, what was your favourite book that you read in the month of October? You'll have to let me know. I think if you've made it this far, that we need to just do a last hurrah for all of these spooky Halloween emojis. If you've made it this far or you just don't know what to comment, then let's just fill it up with pumpkins and ghosts and things, because they're fun and cute, and why not? I'm gonna go. So thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate each and every single one of you that takes the time to watch these videos, to interact. It really does mean a lot. If you have enjoyed this video, then please do consider giving it that thumbs up, subscribing and commenting. Those 3 things really help this channel out. My social media links, anyone I've mentioned, will be linked below for you, and I will of course catch you in the very next video.